You know, Michael, the Republican Party has branded itself as the party of quote-unquote law and order, even though there are many instances where they have been inconsistent on that. They have claimed that they protect police officers no matter what. What are they doing to their branding with the positions they've taken? You know, Eugene Goodman, who was the Capitol police officer who was thought on his feet and saved people by misdirecting the crowd at a time that was critical to getting people to safety. And the way the Republicans dealt with him, and now Tucker Carlson going after this brave police officer. Do you think any of this video of these Trump supporters attacking police officers are going to end up in political ads?
Well, yeah. Yeah, the reality of it is, with respect to the brand, Claire, that's the new reality for the GOP. They're just sort of thrown off the old brand, if you will. And so the law and order narrative that resonated for a lot of different reasons, certainly not based the way it is now, you know, had its place. And it made sense to talk about, okay, how do we, you know, protect and serve our communities as best as that we can. And then sort of talking about the police was the entire police body. They never singled out a police officer. So in that regard, they sort of stood with that blue wall. But this is where the racism, you know, changes that landscape and changes the conversation. Because of all the officers who've been on national networks, Mark knows, you know, having this black officer speak out the way he has, the only one has been branded the way he's been branded, that he's a different kind of police officer. So, Tucker, how is he exactly different again? You know, what has he said that's so different? And so you see this sort of narrative emerge that's steeped in racism and otherism, and how it impacts a once, you know, solid, straightforward narrative about policing, and made it something and turned it into something ugly.
You know, in that clip from Joy's show with Harry Dunn, he talked about hearing the N-word during this incredible moment of danger and emotion and frightening things happening. So that was different for the black officers. But by and large, Mark, there were an awful lot of police officers that feel exactly the way that Harry Dunn felt in terms of being threatened. It's an extraordinary event to have police officers attacked en masse, brutally attacked en masse by a violent mob. That just doesn't happen in America very often. There may be one-offs of people that get out of control at a protest here and there, but this was a mob of angry people that had no problem breaking windows in our nation's capital and no problem jamming flagpoles into the faces of police officers and dragging them across pavement. You know, isn't there really an incredible amount of togetherness among the police officers that were there that day? I mean, isn't Harry Dunn in exactly the same place as all of the other police officers that were attacked on that momentous, scary, awful, frightening day?
Absolutely. Of the Capitol Police and the Metropolitan Police officers who bravely came to their rescue and really made a difference, they all shared that common experience. My other client, Sergeant Gunnell, who will testify as well on Tuesday, he's an Army veteran. He served in Iraq in a real war zone, and he will testify that what happened on January 6th was worse than what he ever experienced in Iraq. And he wasn't prepared to deal with that, because who would have been? You know, that's not a scenario that we had prepared for, you know, since, what, 1814, I guess, when the British last stormed the U.S. Capitol. And Harry's experience with the N-word was not unique to him. He's just the one who has vocalized that occurred. He's had many officers, other African-American officers, come up to him and say, wow, that happened to you? I can't believe it. That happened to me as well. So while both of these officers and the other two Metropolitan officers will be testifying in their personal capacities only, they will be speaking out for the shared experiences of what happened that day. And I don't know what Tucker was watching on January 6th, but I was watching the video, and I've seen a lot since. And there were no tourists that were there that day. That was a violent insurrectionist mob.
Mark, give us a preview of what your client will testify to in the committee next week, and why should everyone watch?
What makes Carlson's comments even worse is that whatever the officers' backgrounds are has nothing to do with what Tuesday is about. They are fact witnesses. The Select Committee is using the officers as a vehicle to simply introduce what investigation they will conduct. The officers aren't going to say why these people were there. They're going to talk about what they heard. They're going to say how they were told by the insurrectionists that Trump sent them, that they should join them. They never let them in the way President Trump has said, but they will talk about how they were attacked with bear spray and pepper spray and, as you said, American flags of all things, that they were trying to steal their weapons, that they were trying to take their shields and their masks, and that there was a lot of coordination, especially among some of the folks, on the real right-wing extremist white nationalists who were there in battle fatigues and decked out, that we all see. And one of the things that you'll see that also goes to just kind of smack Tucker right across the head, so to speak, is that there'll be video and photographs of our clients, of Officer Dunn, of Sergeant Ganill, where you can see them getting hit. Right? This was not a walk in the park. And whatever they believed in their own minds, politically or not, beforehand, was not at play on that day, that's for sure.
Mark Zaid, thank you so much for being with us today. And Michael, we'll see you again. I'm going to be handing off to you at the top of the hour because you're hosting the next hour of Deadline White House.
Thanks, Ray.
Up next, are Republican leaders doing enough to get their constituents back?